Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel. Arsenal are crowned champions of the 25-26 Premier League season and they become the champions for the first time in 22 years and the first time to do it at the Emirates Stadium. And today I've got a little bit of a special video for the Arsenal fans, which is more of a retrospective look at how Arteta has finally won the Premier League with Arsenal, going through the battle scars, the transfers, the ideas that he's had and how he's moulded this Arsenal team into a title-winning team. So if you do enjoy the pieces, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are pretty much there at 50,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone for us. And it's been a great season and even incredible May so far. So really thank you to everyone who's been supporting the pieces. But today, Arsenal fans, I'm going to be one of you because, yeah, I think last night, and I will go on into the tactics later on, but I think it deserves a little bit more of a reaction, a little bit more coverage in terms of just what I've made of Arsenal and what they've done. And I've structured this as in three people or three groups to give credit to when it comes to Arsenal. So Mikel Arteta and the board, I think in terms of the scrutiny they were given, they come into this season and there was a lot of, you know, we never really heard it before, but there was a lot of, if he doesn't win the title, what happens? Could he get sacked? Could he get moved on? The amount of pressure that was on Arsenal this season, and let's not forget, they are still in the Champions League final. The amount of pressure that was on Mikel Arteta has been freakish, unlike anything I've ever seen for a team who's, you know, chasing for the Premier League. And I think coming into it with that pressure, and let's not forget that Arsenal's 3 out of the last 4 Premier League games, I think they've won by 1-0 in crucial games. The Fulham game was absolutely exceptional. Some of the best football I'd seen from Arsenal since Mikel Arteta had joined in terms of the fire in the belly, the aggressiveness, and they just went one better in the last stretch. And I think Burnley game was nervy, but I don't think you're ever going to get an unnervy finish for a team who's not won a league in 22 years with the amount of scrutiny and pressure that we're talking about in terms of what was on Arteta, the expectation of him. And he deserves massive credit. I have got the fans, so I will put Mikel Arteta in the board because the board have backed him. But the fans deserve massive credit. They were scrutinised, their club was scrutinised for years. They were the banter club. They finished 8th back-to-back, I'm pretty sure. You know, we all remember Arsenal Fan TV and that era, the amount of scrutiny the club went through, some of the players, some of the situations that happened with Lacazette, Ozil, Aubameyang, the Wenger to Unai Emery, to Ljungberg, to Arteta transition. What Mikel Arteta had come into was a broken club in terms of internally, the man management was all over the place, the power shift, the power struggle between players, coaches, the fans. It was extremely toxic. And don't get me wrong, we are one of the channels who do this, but, you know, Arsenal come under so much scrutiny every single week in terms of they are hyper-analysed every single week. And if they don't win and they don't score 3 goals and they don't do everything perfectly, they are put to the sword by a lot of the media. You know, is it Arteta's tactics? Is it Gyökeres? Is it, you know, Kai Havertz? Is it Ødegaard? Is it Saka? Is it? And I think in general, I think the fans deserve massive credit because they've stood by him, and I think this is a really nice precedent to set for the rest of the Premier League. We're now going into an era where the league is completely destabilised, apart from Arsenal, you could say. Xabi Alonso's going to go in at Chelsea. God knows what's going to happen there. Pep Guardiola looks like he's going to leave for Enzo Maresca. There'll be a transition there. Manchester United are going into a first full season with Michael Carrick. Still a lot of unknowns. Liverpool look to be sticking with Slot despite a lot of scrutiny, you know, on his reign there. This could be a serious chance for Arsenal to go and put together something special. And I think the reason why I obviously have the fans down as the credit is just believing in the project. In an era in the Premier League where managers are getting sacked for not getting results, Mikel Arteta has brought this and has been, you know, trajectory has always ever been up. And I think they probably should have more to show for it than they have. But I think the fact that they keep going, the fans keep believing, the players keep believing, I think it's remarkable. And I think it's really promising for modern football. I think they've shown what you can do with a project if you give it time, you nurture it, you care for it. And I think it's really refreshing to see that. And for me, it goes against everything in modern football. I think if you look at all the managers that are going in, you know, Chelsea fans, could you do that with Xabi Alonso? United fans, could you do that with Michael Carrick? You know, there's so much more. Enzo Maresca, could you do that at City? There's so much wider scope here to talk about in terms of the impact that this team has had on the Premier League. And then I've got one last thanks before we go on into how they've actually got here. And I don't know why, but I seen a video of Bukayo Saka and Miles Lewis-Skelly last night celebrating it. And Bukayo Saka has been here for the entire period. There was a post he put out in 2020 that said, Arsenal fans, you deserve better. And he's now delivered a Premier League title and could potentially deliver a double to the Arsenal fans. You know, he's born and bred Arsenal. He's there for the entire transition. He was there from the start under Mikel Arteta. He's put in countless performances. He's ran himself into the ground with the amount of minutes he's played. He's played at an obscene level when he's available, when he's fit. And for me, he deserves massive credit. And I think I was speaking to a few Arsenal fans last night, and teams always need them fans within the club to lead you through something. You've got Trent Alexander-Arnold at Liverpool. You've got Phil Foden at Manchester City. And I think them sort of players, obviously the class of 92, stuff like that, you always need someone within the club to lead it from the ground up, to lead a project, to carry a project through and to get it across the line. And Bukayo Saka has been that player for me, and he's absolutely sensational, and I think he deserves it more than anyone because the sacrifices he's sort of made for that club in terms of the amount of minutes he's playing, the amount of injuries he's had, still being robust, going through, obviously scoring against Atletico Madrid in the semi-final, takes him to a final, even assisted the corner that they scored against Burnley. When he's available, he's incredible for Arsenal, and he deserves massive praise. But now it's time to move on into how Arsenal have done this, and I did get a little bit cinematic with this last night, and I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, so, you know, feel free to let me know. But I'm going to split this up into 3 different acts. I'm not sure if anyone's seen The Prestige, but it's partly inspired off that. But I'm going to split it up into 3 different acts and sort of the pillars and the main cornerstones of how they've got here, what has happened. And to start, we've got 1920, 2021 as the Act 1. And that is the structure, the back to the beginning, stripping it back to basics, the transition, the beginning of the transition. So, summer of 2021, every signing was under the age of 23. Ben White, Ødegaard, Ramsdale, Sambi Lokonga, Nuno Tavares, Tomiyasu. And during the segue, but from going to Unai Emery to Mikel Arteta, in 18-19, Arsenal had the 10th youngest squad, so they had an average aged squad. Following on from that season, they then had the 2nd youngest, the 5th youngest, then the 2 seasons after that, the 1st youngest, the 1st youngest. So if we're talking about what Mikel Arteta did in terms of when he went in at Arsenal, I think he stabilised the club. And to do it in his first ever managerial role, we're talking about, you know, Lacazette, Aubameyang, the problems that were being had internally with that club, some of the toxicity on the pitch. He stripped it all back. He, you know, used the academy. He got the fans, you know, back into spirit, I guess you could say. But it was still pretty turbulent. But he had to strip it back, and the foundations were laid. It was a 4-3-3. It was very simplistic. It was very positional attacks. It was very short distance, high pressing, very, very basic football. But it empowered the players and it gave them the early principles to follow through. So moving on from that, we have now got moving on into Act 2, which is believing. This is when Arsenal first started to sniff the glory and first started to almost realise what was capable here with what Arteta had done. And to be honest, I'm brushing over them seasons and going straight to 22-23 because they were incredibly rocky, don't get me wrong. But I think what he did, I think I remember seeing a quote from Ljungberg saying that the next manager that comes in at Arsenal, there is a massive problem in the dressing room divide. That's a manager who was caretaker, who had seen it firsthand. The job was immense. And we talk about managers going into clubs now and galvanising the players and can they win the players over? Arteta did that. You know, he did that. And it might have took him 4 to 5 to 6 years, potentially, yes. I understand that completely. But it worked. You know, it won them their first league in 22 years. So we can't now say that against Arsenal. We can't go if this, but it worked. They've shown that they can strip it back. They can refresh the squad. They can get everyone in. And in 2022-23 season, we arrived at what people like to call the most entertaining version of Arsenal. What happened mostly was Ben White was signed, and everyone remembers that Brentford game where he played up against Ivan Toney was ruffling up Ben White, and Arsenal were labelled as weak, as flimsy, as, you know, not hard enough to beat. Arteta ripped that up. He went to Ben White in this right centre-half role here to combine with the 2 other central defenders. He moved Zinchenko from left-back all the way into midfield. And then he got 2 split 8s of Granit Xhaka and Martin Ødegaard, with the front 3 usually of Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus and Saka. Now, A lot of people like to say that this is the most entertaining version of Arsenal. And to be honest, they were absolutely frightening. I've got a goal here away against Liverpool at Anfield, and we can see the same thing here. 0-0, Ben White studs on his ball in that right centre-half row with a couple players in front of him, but you can see the split eights ahead of the two-man pivot there. The ball is worked into Saka, and as he receives it in between the lines, you can see that front five of Arsenal stretched across Liverpool's back four. They run into the box, Saka gives it to Martinelli, who makes a lovely inside run from the left-hand side, dribbles past, gets it past Alisson, and it's 1-0 Arsenal. And these types of moves that Arsenal were doing in this season were so fruitful and so exciting to watch. But something happened in the 22-23 season. That last patch, that running really scarred Arsenal. And I want to explain to you why it happened. Why did it destabilise? Why did Mikel Arteta go to risk averse to win the Premier League? I've got the game. We all remember that Southampton at home game. Charlie Alcaraz scored, Theo Walcott scored. I think it was Jan Bednarek or something like that for the third goal. And if we look at this was the game where Peter Jory was like, oh, what to make of that? And every Arsenal player was on the knees. Let's analyse what happened in that game. The first goal, Aaron Ramsdale is rolling his studs on the ball and he looks to fire a ball through to Zinchenko like this. It's caught out in the forward pressure and Charlie Alcaraz then spins the ball when Ramsdale's in this higher position, gets it in like that, and it's 1-0 to Southampton. They start the game like that within 20 seconds against Arsenal. But we fast forward on into the second goal that they scored in 13 minutes, and we can see a pretty similar situation. Arsenal in 13 minutes, the ball is won from a knockdown from Martin Ødegaard. We can see Rob Holding with his hands in the air trying to tell everyone to calm down. Bukayo Saka tries to maybe not force it, he tries to just play it square to Thomas Partey. It's a loose touch from Thomas Partey, it results in a second ball. Southampton then recouped that second ball in the most dangerous area of the pitch. I mean, look at this Arsenal structure here. This is unlike anything we've probably ever seen from Arsenal. They run in behind, Theo Walcott, outside to inside run. It's 2-0 Arsenal. That is talking about, when people watch Arsenal, they always go, why are they taking the sting out of the game? Why are they passing it backwards so much? This is why. The battle scars. This is where the character buildings come from, okay? This is where it has come from. Now, it wasn't just this game. There was another game, and the game that I think shaped Mikel Arteta completely as an Arsenal title-winning manager. And that was the game against Manchester City, where Manchester City beat them 4-1. We all remember Rob Holding playing that game. And for me, it was the first goal that Manchester City scored that completely changed everything. We can see in 6 minutes, Arsenal have gone full court press against Manchester City's build-up. What did Manchester City do in the 22-23 season? They signed Erling Haaland, and Pep Guardiola started to think about space a little bit differently. So we can see straight away, Arsenal have got them boxed in. I mean, look at this picture here. Perfect press. You force the opposition long, but what happens? You leave someone 1v1 with Erling Haaland. He wins the knockdown, Kevin De Bruyne runs onto it, and he carries it from this position all the way up to the edge of the box, and it's a beautiful finish. We all remember that goal, right? I will go on to speak about this later, but I think what's often forgotten about in this game was the goal that was 2-0. The goal that was 2-0 was a set piece, whipped in by Kevin De Bruyne and scored by John Stones. A free header at the back post where no Arsenal player has contested him. Look at the picture here. So if we're talking about battle scars, this is where it's all come from. But let's not forget there was another goal in that game. Again, Arsenal in the build-up, 2-0 up. We can see Arsenal playing it round the back. What happens? Martin Ødegaard looks to play it square, backwards. It's a loose pass. It's a pass that, they want to play these tight-knit combinations. 22-23 Arsenal team, they want to use these triangles, get in combinations. They lose it. De Bruyne latches onto the loose ball. Haaland taps it into De Bruyne, and De Bruyne finishes it bottom right corner. And we're talking about this. We're talking about Arsenal being safe in the build-up now, but I think people need to understand why. And then we all remember the following season, the 23-24. They lost 2 games to Aston Villa. Most importantly, the home game. That's when fans started going, we've lost, we've done it, we've bottled the league. Well, if I tell you about this second goal that Ollie Watkins secured to put the nail in the coffin against Arsenal, Arsenal win the second ball from Zinchenko. Look at the pass that Jorginho tries to force in this image here. That is not something that Arsenal are doing now. They are more risk averse. That results in a loss of possession. Aston Villa counter-attack. It's 1v1 with Ollie Watkins. He makes it 2-0. Game over. So what did Arteta do? In the 23-24 season, he went and signed Kai Havertz, Declan Rice, Jurriën Timber, David Raya. If we talk about them players and we talk about what them players are, good at, Kai Havertz is one of the best aerial presence in the league in terms of winning aerial balls, in terms of dropping in terms of playing 1v1 against the centre-half, in terms of the back-to-goal play, the physicality, set pieces, everything. David Raya, one of the best cross-claimers in the game, if not outright the best cross-claimer in the game. Jurriën Timber, what is he? A very, very efficient 1v1 defender, and he has still scored quite a few goals off set pieces. And then we get to Declan Rice, and this is the turning point. Declan Rice is one of the best midfielders in the world, if not, probably one, maybe two. I think he's absolutely exceptional, and I think the amount of games he's playing, the robustness, I was watching him against Burnley, he topped Arsenal's team rank for absolutely everything, he stepped up in the big moments, and I think having a player like that through your spine, to have Saliba and Gabriel behind him, that is the making of a title-winning core. And I think that is the reason Arsenal have won the league. And I don't think you can discard what Rice has done. Often a lot of people talk about, because he's not spinning on the ball, because he's not breaking lines every time. That's completely fine. That's not his game. But no one can run like him. No one can duel like him. And what do Arsenal look to do the most? That. So, in these seasons, we're talking about the building, we're talking about their sniffing the glory. What had happened? Well, in the majority of these seasons, Arsenal ended up actually sustaining a ridiculous amount of pressure on the opposition's block. Now, what happens when you restrict opposition to barely any sort of space? Well, you suffocate them, and in these seasons gone by, Arsenal usually struggled in the games where they had the more possession. I remember them, dropping points to Forest, Fulham, teams like that. So if we're talking about how do we create chances against a team if we can completely suffocate them, Arteta moved towards set pieces. He moved towards set pieces because if they can suffocate an opposition's box like they are in this instance right here, that will get them the most amount of corners possible. And with the squad that they've built, the marginal gains, that will eventually break the door down. Now, it wasn't just this. In probably last season, Arteta started to trust his players completely in terms of the positional aspect. We're talking about in 22-23, we often seen a very, very structured, this was usually Zinchenko, Xhaka, Martinelli, and these combinations were coming in. They were allowed to rotate like that and positionally adjust to the opposition. If we look at Arsenal now, there is so much freedom positionally. Against Burnley, Kai Havertz was stood over here. When Vitsi Gyökeres plays, he stands over here. When different sorts of left-backs play, when Calafiori plays, Calafiori's sometimes in here. There is complete trust and empowerment placed on them players recently to go and find solutions. In recent weeks, it's actually been Martin Zubimendi or Declan Rice splitting the centre-halves, playing with one pivot, and then dropping Eze and another midfielder or Kai Havertz into these pockets. It's really interesting what they're doing. And I think they deserve a lot of praise because we're now going to move on into Act 3, which is doing it, which is seeing it, it's believing it. And that's the marginal games, the suffocation, licking the wounds. Let's be safer on the ball. Let's not give away stupid balls like we've seen. Let's tighten up on set pieces. Let's get more physical because we can't play City and get done by a long ball in the first 6 minutes again. We can't. Squad depth. Depth throughout. We've not even mentioned the amount of Arsenal players who've been injured over these games and seasons. Saliba, Saka, Ødegaard, Kai Havertz. The depth was needed. And now Arsenal are going into a situation and going into a potential double where they have a bolstered unit. And for me, he deserves massive, massive credit now. And I think people were almost afraid to give him credit because he hadn't done it yet. But for me, he's done everything that I would want my football club to do in terms of he's an ex-player, yes. He's been given the power to orchestrate the dressing room, to bring in youth players, to build a style, to be trusted, to adapt, to be pragmatic when it needs to be given the reins in certain situations, to be given the reins to sign, to sell. And for me, I'm really happy for him, if I'm being honest. Like, obviously I'm a United fan, whatever. I'd rather them win the league than City, but I'm really happy for him because I think they've gone against the grain a little bit. You know, people talk about modern football. They're going against the grain in modern football in terms of what they've introduced, in terms of the physical aspects, in terms of how hard they are to beat, in terms of how resilient their block is. But they've also gone off the grain a little bit off the pitch. Trusting Arteta, trusting the signings, not giving up. You know, and I think they deserve massive credit for that. And let's not even forget, we've gone all this talking about, you know, we've gone all through this talking about, you know, the shape and what they're doing on the ball. This, yeah, that's it. This is an absolute nightmare for any single team. This is one of the best blocks I've seen. I've been watching football for many years now. The way they defend is absolutely beautiful. And I think the coordination, I went back and watched like the 21-22 teams, and I was watching a lot of games just to research and see what they changed. The ideas off the ball were never really altered. They just believed in it a little bit more. When they jump out, imagine this is the back four and we've got, you know, the 4-4-2 like this. I was watching Emile Smith-Rowe wait and delay his run and go like that and creep up. And then as soon as the defender made a shift in his body angle and to where he's going to play the ball, he's going to go bang. And then everyone goes all coordinated, jumps out. We all go man to man. We go one centre half in midfield. To get that buy-in in your first season, to lay them foundations, in your first managerial job, is insane. And yeah, I'm really happy for him. I'm honestly, and to be honest, Arsenal fans, don't let anyone tell you can't celebrate this. It's been 22 years. I'm going to be absolutely unbearable when my team wins the league again, if we win the league again. So yeah, don't let anyone, you know, brush over what's been done this season. I can't think of many managers who've gone toe-to-toe with Pep Guardiola and come out on top in even just one domestic campaign. And for me, yeah, he deserves massive credit. He's now up there. And I think this should be, I wanted to put like a last little bit in because I know Arteta will be thinking like this. Enjoy the league title. Enjoy it. Like, drink it in. It's absolutely an amazing feeling. It's one that, you know, Liverpool fans will tell you, United fans will tell you, even Arsenal fans could tell you that you don't get to, you know, feel that many times. And the way you've done it, the trust, the belief that you've got in your manager, yeah, amazing. But for me, this has to be the start, in my opinion, of something completely like a dynasty, I think. Something where Arsenal win 3 out of 5 league titles and a European Cup. I think they've got the ability to do that now. With the situations across Europe, across the Premier League, with the managers, Arsenal got the deepest squad. There is still blatant holes to improve in this Arsenal team. There's still blatant holes. Like, they're not even at their best in terms of, you know, the personnel that's being put out there. They desperately need a left winger, you know? And it's remarkable to me, you know, what's going on. And yeah, I think there's such a clear idea of where to go next for Arsenal in the market. And now they've got over that hump. And now they've got over the scrutiny, the expectation, you know, the pressure, which they've always been hit with. They've always been hit with the bottlers. They've now got over that pressure. So what's now to come? Because they've got a very clear line of thinking towards next summer, where to recruit, who to buy for. We've got the manager. We've won the league. I think this could be the start of something really special for Arsenal, a long-term project. And even though it's been 6 years, I think this year is where the project really begins. Because you've had 6 years to lay the foundations and smell what it's like. But now you believe in, now you've done it. And I think this could be the start of something where they could go on a tear. I'm going to say it right now. I think they'll go on a tear. But yeah, drink it in. Enjoy it, Arsenal fans. You've been immense this season. And yeah, if you did like this video, please do not forget to like, comment and subscribe to the Overlap Breakdown channel. And we'll see you again next week for some more analysis. Thank you.